And he's now only two wins away from breaking the all-time record by Anderson Silva for the most consecutive wins in the UFC. How close is Islam, Chuck, to securing and solidifying his status as one of the all-time greats?
I think a couple more fights, Jay, because it's one of those things where he's turning us into believers. Everyone said, hey, Khabib is the one. Islam showing that he is of the same ilk, because he trained with Khabib, I think, from the age of 8 when they were competing together as kids, and then he got to train with Khabib's father, and then he's been with Khabib the entire time, all the way through into his UFC career till now. And so you can tell that these guys have got that I don't know where do they come from. They're wrestling. Dagestani wrestling.
Even the name Dagestani. Yeah, man.
It's crazy.
Like people who, if you met a guy that you were supposed to find, it's like, where do you come from? I come from Dagestani. It's like, it's cool, brother.
Yeah, their wrestling has proven to be elite. I mean, but people like Bob Nickel, who's all American wrestling champion, people are saying, okay, if he fights against the Russian wrestlers, will he do well? I don't know, because he's in line to fight Chimaev if they ever make that fight. They're in the same weight category. But back to Islam Makhachev, Jay, I think if your wrestling is not good, forget. It's as simple as that. Because Moicano is good. He's been on a tear, striking, grappling, having a bit of jiu-jitsu knowledge. But if your wrestling is not on that level, forget it. And he was as optimistic as he could be up until he found out. Because if your wrestling is not good, he exposes you. His striking is good. He's going to show us in a couple of years that he was one of the special ones.
Yeah, he doesn't just have the wrestling. His striking is good, as you mentioned, because he did knock out Volkanovski also in the first round with a head kick. So it's hard to game plan against that because if you are on your feet, he's just as strong. And if you go to the mat, then it's over. You know, the moment that he got a hold of Moicano, you just knew.
It didn't take long.
No, it didn't. It really didn't. And the question is, Chuck, because he has cleared the division, right? And unless Khabib, which is never going to happen, comes back, doesn't look like there's much of a challenger at this in this division. But he's on the record. Islam is saying that he does want to retire as a two-time champion, right? A two-division champion. And he's not likely to go to move up just one level because his friend, you're talking about friends.
Bilal Muhammad, yeah.
He's the champion in that. But he did say that he's willing to go further up and fight Drikkers.
Crazy.
One, is it time for him to move up? Is that where the challenge is going to come from? And can you actually see him competing at that higher weight?
Look, I think Topuria sent a tweet saying that he can knock him up whenever he wants. I don't know if they ever put that fight together. For me, that would be very interesting in terms of the guy says, I'm not only good with my wrestling, I'm good with my striking as well. So let's put those two together and find out. But if that never happens, I think if he goes up, I think he must go up to the welterweight class where there's Bilal Muhammad. Friends or not, get that belt because I think that's where he's going to be tested. Middleweight is just a step too high because those guys are incredibly strong. As good as you may be technique-wise, sometimes your strength overpowers the technique because people would say that Drikkers has got funny technique, he falls over, doesn't have balance, it looks awkward.
He's as strong as an ox.
That's a difference maker because Rob would say, I thought to myself I could beat him until he got hit by Drikkers and you're like, okay, I can't take that.
Drikkers is from the plus. You know, don't just show up there with your wrestling techniques like, are you strong? Like
that's the thing, man. I'll give you an example. When Izzy went to light heavyweight to fight Jan Blachowicz, who's not necessarily known for his wrestling, Blachowicz took him down at will because he's that much stronger than Izzy. And that was a determining factor in that fight because sometimes you might be able to scramble, you might be able to turn things around and have reversals, but someone is that strong, more often than not, they'll have their way with you. So I don't think that Makhachev is that strong to go up against Drikkers and have his way wrestling-wise. I don't see it. Technique can only go so far because Drikkers is not a novice. He's not as good as Islam, but he's got a wrestling background. He's got a jiu-jitsu background. There are clips of him training with Izzy in Thailand. There are clips of him wrestling against an entire gym and holding his own. So if one guy who's much smaller in height and in strength comes through, I don't see Islam winning that one.
Listen, the UFC joined up with the WWE, and I remember a time when Triple H took his sledgehammer and he put it into the broken back of Shawn Michaels, and those boys were best friends. I was like, what? Ain't no friendships when it comes to fighting. Of course, that is scripted, but like All I know is you're a fighter, he's a fighter, he's the champion, he's in the division just above you, and you want to leave that kind of legacy. And the thing that does make one of the things that makes the most sense is for you to move up just one division. Go and take that title. It's fighting at the end of the day. These guys are in the octagon, or even in boxing in the ring, and they come out and they touch gloves, right? Or they hug even after the fight, and they exchange good words. Doesn't mean that because you're fighting somebody suddenly you become enemies. I do understand that it's a hard thing to get your mind around. We saw this as well with the Williams sisters. They never played their best tennis when they're playing against each other because it's weird, it's your sister, and you do wanna produce some kind of enmity against that person so that you can have a full go at them. And maybe when friendship is standing in the way, that's slightly problematic, but you're professionals. This is what you guys do. It's the same thing as if you were just still wrestlers, whether in the amateur level and moving up, that if you are thrown up against this guy, because you'd make the friendships in these camps, and then you get to national level, if the two of you are the best going around, you're going to have to face up against one another. That's your opponent at the end of the day. And I think, he shouldn't deprive us of what would be a great fight. And I'd love to see him move up. I'd love to see him get to welterweight and get the belt. And I'd love to see him have a try at middleweight. If he feels that he's that bad of a man, go right ahead. We saw this with Canelo, even though you probably did figure that Bivol was going to beat him, and that's exactly what happened. But he had a goal. It's probably never going to go back, but we know. And it doesn't put a black mark on your legacy. Maybe to protect himself, as you say, maybe you don't want to mess with those bigger boys. But Chuck, if he goes then to the welterweight and he does exactly what he's been doing where he is right now, then it's going to come up again, should he move up, But we'll see what is in the future of Islam, because he is working on one of the all-time greatest legacies UFC has ever seen.